Well, good morning and welcome to the MAPS 3 Citizens Advisory Board meeting for February the 27th, 2020. It is the appointed time. Carol, do you agree that we have a quorum? Having a quorum, we will now call the meeting to order. You've been furnished with copies of the proposed minutes of our previous meeting on January the 23rd. Are there additions or corrections?
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes as submitted. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The minutes are approved. Item 3, David, the MAPS revenue and expenditure reports.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You have in your packet the MAPS 3 revenue and expenditure report for the period ending December 31st, 2019. On the revenue side for the month, there's $354,523. Fiscal year of $2,548,097 and program of $833,476,281. On the expenditure side, $7,878,632 for fiscal year of $50,529,759 and total expenditures $630,110,510. Then you also have the revenue and expenditure report for January 31st. Similarly, on the revenue side for the month, $353,151. Fiscal year of $2,901,247, and program or total expenditure revenue of $833,829,432. And on the expenditure side for the month, $7,159,015, $57,688,774 for fiscal year, and total expenditures of $637,269,525. Then you also have the budget and obligations report. If you have any questions, I'll try to answer those.
So we have not spent more than we have to spend.
We have not.
Michael, your comments.
I just make one comment and note that in the interest category, we're still earning $360,000 a month in interest for unspent funds. And I think when we looked at how much excess funds we had 18 months ago, that number was $21 million, and now it's up to $30 million. So we have continued to earn money, and it goes into our pot for excess funds. And that I think we'll be looking at later today. So I just thought I'd point that out. So with that, I move that we accept the report.
It's been moved and seconded that we accept the report as presented. Is there further discussion, or are there questions? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is received. Item 4, David.
Item 4 is a recommended resolution approving preliminary report, MAPS 3 Whitewater Facility in Oklahoma River Boathouse District Improvements, Project M3-R008. If you will recall, this body recommended and council approved some additional funds to be used at the Boathouse area, and today we have a preliminary report prepared by Hornbeak Blatt. Tony Blatt is here today to go over that preliminary report with you.
Thank you, Chairman and board members. Tony Blatt, Hornbeak Blatt Architects, 101 South Broadway, 73034. So what we're here today is to discuss the preliminary report for the Oklahoma City Boathouse District improvements. And this is specifically broken up into 2 phases. The first phase are items that are either currently in construction or have been completed, and the next phase are items that are slated for construction in our next letting of bid documents. So in phase 1, what we have is we have the cathodic protection, we have capacitors, some filtration testing, we have a timing system, and then we have the double occupancy surf machine. This is a site plan showing where these items are located. The dual person or double occupancy surf machine is next to the Whitewater building, and the rest of the items relate specifically to the Rapids channel. The cathodic protection is something that has been started and is nearing completion, and is dealing specifically with addressing keeping corrosion off of any of the metal parts that are down inside the channel. It's basically protecting those from any type of deterioration in the future. This is nearing completion. It's about 80% complete currently. We have installed capacitors which will deal with electric power to the infrastructure on the site, and it's dealing both with the efficiency of the power and it's a reduced cost and a reduced energy usage on startup. This has been completed for installation. It has not been turned on. Once the channel is brought back up to the proper levels, at that point this will be turned on and it will be considered 100% complete. We did some initial filtration testing, and this is in advance of our Phase 2 filtration, specifically to see how the water would react whenever we did different types of filtration methods. This testing was utilized to create the next phase, the scope of services for the next phase of testing. And that is complete. That filtration testing has been completed. We also installed a timing system, and the timing system was installed so that we would have a permanent system for when races were completed, that a professional timing system was being utilized and we weren't renting a temporary timing system to time races on property. Last item is our dual occupancy surf machine, which was bid at the end of last year and is currently under construction. Construction is they've dug down and they're getting ready to install footings. The actual machine is slated to arrive 30 days after the shop drawings have been reviewed, and those shop drawings are in our office under review. We're still slated to be installing this in this spring, and so that was the intent, so that we could utilize it this season. A couple of additional photographs of the surf machine, and this is just an overall budget and timing slide. It's the Cathodic Protection was about $109,000. Capacitors were $329,000. Filtration testing was just shy of $25,000. The timing system was $7,500, and the surf machine was $1,964,000 and a little bit over that. So the work has been completed on the filtration and the timing systems. The Cathodic Protection will be completed as soon as the channel is filled and it's activated. The capacitors are almost complete. Or the capacitors will be complete when it's filled and activated, and the Cathodic Protection is about 80% complete, and the double surf machine is under construction currently. Phase 2 is going to include a renovation of the interior of the Rapids building, and it's going to include the permanent filtration, plus we have set up an alternate for a 4-person zip line. The interior of the building on the ground floor will be a renovation of the stairs and elevators that were originally slated up to the 2nd floor, plus an enlarged kitchen footprint to handle the meeting rooms upstairs, and a slight adjustment to the offices that deals with the enlarged kitchen and bar footprint. Upstairs we have 3 large meeting rooms, a smaller room that combined can make one very large open meeting room. We have a conference room that's directly adjacent to the stair. We have storage spaces and mechanical spaces, and then we also have this epic deck that is in the 2-story space that's currently in the east side of the building, that when completed will overlook onto the surf machine and will be used as a rental opportunity for the property. This is a couple of slides of the interior of the 2nd floor space. We're carrying the aesthetic of the original building, which is white with blue accents, gray on the walking surfaces, and we've created a sculpted ceiling that's going to provide access to the mechanical units above, and also kind of further that wave motif throughout the interior of the building. Then another one of those shots just from a different vantage point. The filtration system that we're proposing is going to be able to take and filter down to a 0.5 micron. The current filtration that's being done is down to 5 microns, and the intent of this is to bring that water level back down in and remove any brown or hazy visual aspect to the water. So basically the filtration system is supposed to bring the water into compliance with what the expectations of the facility will be. This is just a shot of the channel. This is the area, 9 million gallons of water that we're trying to filter in this project. The 4-person zip line, so not to run up right to the edge of the budget, we're establishing this as an alternate, but the intent of this is that we can have families of 4 be able to ride this zip line at the same time. It's going to activate the northwest corner of the property so that it's a busy spot in case any future development happens around it. You'll stage right by the building, by the water sports building. You'll take existing sidewalks to where you will launch. You'll go up 62 feet, launch down to the northwest corner of the property, and be able to return your gear at the exact same spot where you got your gear in the first place. This is a rendering of what that zip line will look like and where it launches from, and whenever you're riding it, you'll be looking right down to the central business district and looking at the downtown skyline. So the estimate of cost for the ground and second floor renovations is just over $2 million. The four-person zip line that we've established as an alternate is $500,000. And then for the filtration system, our engineer is saying that we should be estimating in the $1.5 million range for the filtration system that will take it down to that half-micron level. What we're planning on doing is after approval, with your approval today, go to City Council next week. Then we will release the documents for review by the MAPS office and the other review boards, and get this out in the summertime for bid, and hopefully have these projects in completion by the time that the facility opens next March. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
David, you want to add any comments before the questions?
No, sir.
Okay. Questions? Been moved and seconded that we approve. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your report. Item 5, David.
Item 5 is a presentation on construction progress on MAPS 3 Bennett Event Center improvements, project M3-F002G. Been doing a lot of work, miscellaneous kind of work out at the Bennett Event Center, and this group hasn't seen any of that information in quite some time. So I thought I'd bring you an update on what was going on. So John Sentner with FSB is here to bring you up to date with what's going on out there.
Thank you.
Morning, John.
Morning. We wanted to talk a little bit about the various different projects we have going in the building. The building is highly utilized, so we're trying to snake in all of these projects amongst the other tenant uses. So to kind of dive right in, the first project is one that associated with the main electrical feed to the building. We wanted to enhance the reliability of this feed, so we went ahead and did some medium voltage work. That work is completed and approved at this time. The second, we came in as part of a city contract. We went ahead and replaced all of the soap dispensers. It enhanced both their use and their maintainability, their future maintainability. The third project is a single contract with TEPCO, the original installer of the curtain wall system, the main doors as you approach the building on the south or the northeast or northwest corners. We wanted to enhance those doors and allow them to stand up for longer terms and really give a better product than what was originally installed. That work has been completed, but we're still trying to finalize the final paperwork for acceptance. As went along with that, we had another contract with our access control supplier to go ahead and revise all the access controls for those doors. That work has been completed, and we're awaiting the paperwork to finalize that acceptance. The vast majority of the improvements that I presented on previously are wrapped together in a single contract. That contract was awarded to Shiloh Construction. Probably the signature piece in that is replacing all the doors perimeter to the main expo space. As you can see there, those are hollow core doors. We're really doing improvements that when they were originally installed, they were installed early in the process, and we just weren't happy with the way they were closing and operating. Most of that replacement has been completed. There's just a couple left to do. In addition to that, there were several safety improvements we wanted to do, most notably with access to the roof. A lot of the handholds and access ladders to the roofs just weren't where we wanted them, so we went ahead and added safety railing, additional handholds, additional ladder steps to all of those, and that work's been completed. The one kind of aesthetic and durability issue that we're doing out there that people will probably notice is a lot of the column covers are a metal panel. Those have not worn well since the facility's been opened, and they were originally a value engineering that were done late in the process, trying to make sure we hit budget. So we're going to go ahead and replace those with a glass fiber reinforced concrete cover. It's going to maintain much longer for decades. Those have come in at a longer lead item than we expected, so those are not in yet. We anticipate those in the April timeframe to be installed. There's several small plumbing issues with the building, from hot water timing to some water hammer issues. So we've gone ahead and addressed every one of those. All of that work's been completed. And then we added signage to all of the ticket booths. So as you come up, there can be digital signage there adjacent to those. All of those have been installed. So to kind of give you the highlight of the schedule for that Shiloh construction project, we gave notice to proceed November 6th. We have contractually their target for completion date is March 23rd, but we anticipate that to go into the April timeframe. With that, I would take any questions.
Any questions? Bob, anything from the subcommittee?
No, we just had a small group yesterday and heard the presentation, but obviously these are improvements that we've discussed before and were very necessary for the Bennett building and coming along well.
Any other questions? Shall we approve it? Pardon me?
It's just a presentation.
Okay, so we don't need any action on it then. All right, well, thank you for the report. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Item 6, David.
Item 6 is recommend resolution approving change order number 1, MAPS 3 Bennett Event Center improvements, a decrease of $2,200.60, project M3-F002G. So as the title says, this is a net decrease. There are some additional isolation valves, but there was a credit for fur down. So that's some trim work that was originally shown in the plans, and fairground staff has decided that they wanted to omit that and just use wire mold. So there was a credit. So as I said, for a third time, this ends up being a decrease.
I'll move approval. Again, we didn't have a quorum at our meeting yesterday, but I heard no opposition to the resolution from those who were present.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as presented. Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 7, David.
Item 7 is recommend resolution approving change order number 22, MAPS 3 Convention Center, increase of $81,448, project M3-C003. So there are various items on here as we continue with construction on the convention center. I can tell you the convention center is going really well. The heat is operable. They are placing fixtures and painting walls and really progressing along with that. But there's just some what I would call routine things in here, and I'll be glad to talk about any of them if you want. The largest is the acoustic metal ceiling revisions. So there's a metal ceiling in the ballroom area that's got speakers back behind it, and the perforations weren't allowing enough of the sound transmission from those speakers. So this is to add essentially more holes into the ceiling at those locations where the speakers are. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but remember, this is for those of you that were at the mayor's lunch yesterday, our new ballroom is bigger than that. So that's how much space we're talking about, how many speakers would be in there. So this comes with the approval from the subcommittee.
Been moved and seconded that we approve the resolution as presented. Is there further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 8, David.
Item 8 is recommend resolution approving change order number 4 and amendment number 7, MAPS 3 Sidewalks Phase 4, Project 2 improvements, an increase of $49,004.50, project M3-W004A. So this is the last of the sidewalk projects that we have going on right now. We had some significant delay because of right-of-way issues. Could not get the right-of-way in some of these tight spaces, and it delayed the contractor. Contractor's not asking for delay per se, but what has happened in this time period is that the prices that he bid has gone up. And we've verified this with other bid tabs and other projects. So this is to compensate him for the additional cost of concrete and those materials that he has to use while he is waiting.
Been moved and seconded that we approve it. Questions or discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Next item, David.
Next item is recommend approval of returning $15 million of MAPS 3 Convention Center funds to the MAPS 3 program contingency funds. This is very contrary to what we've had many times on here, but we have talked about this, and it is a reality. Right now, I can tell you that the Convention Center, with the construction line item and the contingency line item, has about $26 million in the account, because we are very fortunate that we came in well under budget, still getting everything that the Convention Center needs. So the discussion was to return $15 million at this time back to the contingency funds for use in other programs. I can tell you that this was unanimously approved by the Convention Center subcommittee. This still leaves, and I'll continue here, what I've done is the accounting is from that $26 million, we've deducted the cost that we're going to have for the 4th Street experience that you've all seen preliminary plans on, that we've acted on, part of that, and also the cost of Robinson Avenue that will come out of the Convention Center budget. Deducting that and taking out the $15 million still leaves them with over $6 million in contingency funds in that account.
Sue?
I can just agree with what David said and tell you that the committee did have a good, healthy discussion about it, and they were proud to be able to send this back to us. So I move approval.
It's been moved and seconded that we approve it. I do want to add this one thing. We have, at the Convention Center subcommittee meetings, we have been asking every time, what is it that we don't know that could happen? Of course, our number one goal is to make sure that we have the money to finish this Convention Center before we give anything back for the rest of the program. And so this has been something that we've been looking at carefully and considering carefully for several months. I mean, this is, and as we will have our discussion about excess funds, this may not be the last money that we transfer back, but Sue and I have continued to implore the consultants, is there something that could happen that we would need this money for? And as we get closer and closer, and I know you already know that we're headed toward a fall completion, maybe not opening, but a fall completion of this. And I think we all feel comfortable that we're going to be well within our budget and that we can do this, and it's not, it is judiciously done with careful consideration that we're asking to send this money back because we believe we can finish the project on time and within the budget. So with that, I encourage you to vote yes on this because I think we have carefully considered it. Any other questions? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. Item 10, David.
Item 10 is recommend approval of funding requests for the remaining Oklahoma City Capital Improvements Sales Tax Funds, Excess Collections, Interest, and/or Program Contingency Funds for the MAPS 3 projects.
Yes, I asked David for the opportunity to provide some context for this. I know that you all have each received your copy of the information that we have to consider today, and I wanted to at least share with you the results of my monthly meeting with the mayor, which goes on every month. And earlier recently, I met with him and the city manager, and they had asked me for a report on our thinking, our joint thinking about the use of the excess funds. And so we talked about that in some detail, and particularly with regard to the process. So I told them that what our process had been was to go back to all the subcommittees, ask them for any enhancements that they thought for MAPS 3 projects, and bring those ideas forward to this group. In addition, there were some items that did not emanate from the subcommittees. The example that I asked Mike if I could use today is Mike's idea that we create an endowment for maintenance for MAPS 3 projects with the excess funds. And so in the course of that conversation, the mayor said he was very interested in our input, but that he was not expecting us to bring a plan for allocation of the excess funds. That what he was expecting us to do was to bring forward all of those ideas, but that the mayor and the council may be thinking to some degree more broadly than we are, because we have only thought about these things with MAPS 3, and he gave me a copy of the resolution which was adopted by the mayor and city council for MAPS 4. And in the MAPS 4 resolution, there is a provision that they would be looking to the MAPS 3 excess funds for at least one example would be the completion of the Coliseum at the fairgrounds. There's also the issue of there will be, as we finish the 4 senior wellness centers that we're working on, there will be a 5th senior wellness center and others. And so, as we talked it through, there was I think we historically thought about how we got started on all of this 10 years ago, and we did not allocate the funds. The funds were, and the budgets were established by the city council, and they were given to us for implementation. And so our first step was to start the implementation plan. And so because there is going to be some coordination between MAPS 4 projects and the finishing up of the MAPS 3 projects, we still, of course, have to do the lower part. We still have to do 2 wellness centers. And so as the thoughts are brought forward about how to allocate these funds, he asked that we report to him and to the council on how much excess funds there were, how much we've already spent, how much there is left in the excess funds, and our ideas about how those funds could be used on the MAPS 3 projects. But they're not looking to us for a detailed plan to bring forward. As a result of that direction, I met with Craig and with David, and we developed a plan for the report and the meetings that have occurred this week in the subcommittees, so that we would comply with what we've been asked to do. One of the reasons that we have it on the agenda today is the mayor and the council are ready to start considering what to do with the excess funds, and they'd like to get started on it in the month of March. And since this is our meeting in February, they asked that we get this report ready. And so David and his staff have been working, I don't want to say around the clock, but they've been working a lot to get all of this information. And while I'm anxious to hear any input and comments that all of you have, I will just say you've been furnished with a copy of the things that David and staff believe should be included in this report. If there are anything that you want to have added to this, we certainly want to do that today. But it will be the plan going forward, subject to your approval, would be for us to provide the information that they have asked us, and they will be the decision makers on the allocation of the excess funds. Any questions or comments about that before David presents this? All right, David.
Well,
Yeah, I don't have a real presentation, but what I will, for the benefit of those in the audience and watching on TV, I'll just go through the list here. So at the fairgrounds, $9 million, as you said, to supplement the cost for the MAPS 4 Coliseum replacement.
Dave, would you stop there just a minute? I want, with Bob's concurrence, I want to mention this. When we started our process, we were asked for an additional $7 million for the fairgrounds for things that would enhance things there. And as this report came forward, they agreed to withdraw the previous request, didn't they, David?
Yes, sir.
For the $7 million for the other things, and substitute that for what you see here. Am I right about that?
That is correct.
Okay, go ahead.
The river was previously funded, as you saw a presentation today on the preliminary report. Obviously, the Convention Center giving back $15 million, won't be asking for additional money. Trails and sidewalks, I think that I could have put $6 billion on here, but with good discussions with the Trails and Sidewalks Subcommittee, one of the primary concerns was connecting the South Lakes Park area to the river, much like we've done the river with Overholser and the river with Lake Hefner with the I-44 trail and the West River trails. So there's $20 million for that trail from South Lakes to the river, which conceivably would follow maybe May Avenue or Portland Avenue, one of those routes up through there. It really hasn't been planned, but that is a rough estimate for that. Then on the senior wellness front, we saw presentations this month from the three different projects. So the first one is an additional $975,000 for Center 1 because of some needs they have because of the just busting at the seams attendance that they have there. An additional $1.8 million for Center 3 because of some programming things that we want to make sure that we get right and that we don't have to immediately expand locker rooms and do those things that you've seen in Wellness Centers 1 and 2 so far. Just really kind of a lessons learned in funding those. And likewise, there's 2.2 for Center number 4, and the main difference between those is that Center 4 is kind of locked out as far as parking. So Centers 1, 2, and 3 all have what I would call overflow parking. Center 1 has church parking. Center 2 has Capitol Hill High School parking if they have a large event. Center 3 will have the ability to overflow parking into the grocery store area. But Center 4 is kind of out on its own, and we need to add some more parking in order to make it effective, because otherwise people will leave or they'll try and park in the grass if they can get in it. It's just real isolated out there. So 2.2 for Center 4. The park has $30 million, and that comes from the report that we saw a few months back on renovating Union Station. Again, park could be one of those that could ask for $100 million to do a lot of things, and I think that we've seen with the success of the park, that would all be money well spent. But staying reasonable on this and using that report, preliminary kind of planning report that we saw, $30 million was mentioned, so that's on the list for Union Station. Streetcar has previously been funded, and then as Mr. McDaniel mentioned, in the other category, to create an investment fund for future capital expenses came from Mr. Adams.
I have a question for you, David, if I could. On the Center 4, $2.2 million, was that just for the parking lot, or were there other things? Okay.
No, that was also, both centers, the budget was squeezing the gymnasiums down to be small gymnasiums, and this would allow those gymnasiums to be full-size gymnasiums, would allow the indoor track, which we found is a very desirable asset within the wellness centers now, which we didn't do to begin with, but as I said, we found that they're very desirable. This would allow that track to become larger so that you're not having to make 20 or 30 laps to get a mile. You know, you get more like 12 laps. So it enlarges the gym in both cases. It enlarges some exercise spaces, But that difference, the 500,000 in there is the parking lot.
Okay. My second question to that is on the streetcar, have we completed all of the studies for signal prioritization on that, or have we satisfied that request?
Studies are finished. That's still going on between Public Works and Embark. I believe that they've reached a point where they're pretty satisfied with that. And what we're doing now is buying a lot of spare parts. We're also doing the Fifth Street turnback work that is underway.
David, can we back up just a second? Maybe give us a recap on how much we're talking about in excess funds?
Right. So the October report that I have shows right at 20 million. I think it's 19,800,000. So we'll, for sake of argument, we'll call it 20 million in excess collections, interest, and contingency funds that are still out there. And then with the additional 15 million
From the convention center.
gets us, right, from the convention center, gets us up to about 35. Conceivably, there hopefully will be another 5 to come out of the convention center at a later date when we finish that. So about $40 million.
And we'll continue to earn interest, although that's declining, so there'll be a few million maybe on interest too.
That is true.
Yeah, I should have said at the outset, we have more ideas and more requests than we have money.
Obviously, this list exceeds.
Yeah.
Which is what we did 18 months ago on that original plan, too.
So that's one of the things that I'd ask was the mayor, is it our job to have the competition for all of these and try to reduce it, or are you guys going to allocate it? And the answer was they were going to. And I wanted to ask him one question, if I may. Also in the park subcommittee, you talked about the extending the park to the river. And so it wasn't just Union Station that was included, but those things together if we did the presentations that were made to your subcommittee, it would exceed 30 million.
It definitely would. And early on, we asked Hargraves to design that element of taking the park all the way to the river just to see what that would look like, not only as a great feature to the park, but also as another source of operational revenue, which is the basis for the ask also on Union Station. Certainly, it's a gem and a jewel, and our city has lost so many of those over the years, but even through the original RFPs and throughout our process with our consultants Hargraves, Union Station has always been a sought-after entity within that park, to not only house the offices for Scissortail Park, but to become a great venue for all of Oklahoma City, its citizens, and a great revenue generator for the park.
Other questions? Michael?
Tom, yes. When I originally saw this and understood the process that you outlined here today, my original thought was that, wow, we spent 10 years subcommittees working diligently and exhaustively on all these projects, and to kind of now take that and take it directly to the council, something about that just didn't seem right. But upon reflection, the more I thought about it, the more I realized I think it does make a lot of sense. And the reason for that is, of course, is that because we spent 10 years on our own subcommittees, and we are champions of those projects, that it puts, it just makes sense that the council, representing, of course, and being voted by the folks of the city to make these decisions, might make actually more sense, because they don't have that same sort of 10-year history of just working at a specific project. So I think that makes sense. I wanted to say that. Having said that, though, as I'm sitting here and I add up the Cedar Wellness Centers in the park, which happens to be the two subcommittees that I'm involved with, that equal right about $35 million, I suggest we could just do that and move on. Anyway.
Look at that notion.
You have provided an excellent illustration of the point you're trying to make. That we all have our own favorites. Cecilia.
Hello. Yeah, we do all have our own favorites, and our I think everyone being committed to the process. That's a natural thing, right? Like, it's our babies, we've birthed it. But I do want to take a minute to speak specifically about Senior Wellness Center number 3, particularly because, just because of the timing, and I want to remind everybody, it was supposed to be Senior Wellness Center number 1, right? And just lots of things prohibited that from happening. But in the process of designing and figuring out a good location and getting the community involved, what we're finding out is a lot of the community is feeling like what we're going to end up with may not be exactly what we feel like we need for the area. Had several conversations yesterday after the committee meeting, and lots of people expressed their feelings and concerns. And one of them that I think I had not really thought about that came up was due to the location. This started out as a Senior Wellness Center, number 3, located supposedly further east, 73111, the unhealthiest zip code in the state, and so that it was going to really be a primary draw to those residents. Moving it over to Lincoln gives it a little different accessibility, if you will, to a larger group of people. You got to think about the people that work downtown and work in the Capitol that use Lincoln, that might increase usage to this facility that we probably hadn't really considered before. And so we're not really talking about a neighborhood facility or an area or an east side facility. We're talking more of a facility that's the closest one we'll have to downtown. And so I just want to put that out there for consideration. We left some cards on the table. There is room to expand. It didn't make this cut. It's not included in this $1.8 million. But as we go forward and we keep having these conversations with City Council, with the folks involved with the community, that we consider that this may not just be a facility that will have the ability, just because of its location, to just cater to one certain area. So I just want to say that.
Good point. Sue?
You made me think, Cecilia, that what you bring to the table is so important. And so I guess this is really kind of directed to Mark. So as we move forward, we know that it becomes now the City Council. But it's important that we don't lose the thinking and the expertise from the committees. And I know that MAPS 4 will be the same way with their advisory board and their committees. But I just challenge the City Council to be sure that they seek out maybe some committee members' discussions or advice. For instance, I'll give you an example. We know trail-wise that MAPS 4 has trails on it, but it's really more kind of those shared bike lane type things, and maybe not quite as much of the trails that we built in MAPS 3. And we know we still need to do those kinds of trails too. But we felt, some people on my committee felt like that discussion wasn't even brought to the table when we were having the public meetings. It was a little more along the line of that shared. So it's just things like that, again, it's 10 years, so it's hard for us to give up. Because, we think about it for 10 years. But, everybody has their ideas personally that's on the City Council. But I think that we really want to be global and yet drill down to those specific things that might be important for, like Wellness Center number 3, but also the zip code 73111, and things will look different.
A couple of comments, and I appreciate what you say. Is that not on? The lights burn out. A couple of comments. In making phone calls through this process, I've learned a lot in talking to members of the committees, and I've learned even more about how hard David Todd and his staff have worked on this project. And so I really appreciate it. I appreciate Mike's comments that we have the opportunity to look at more instead of less. And I encourage those conversations from my members of the council. I encourage them to make phone calls and to take the time to feel your passion, to learn of your passion, and to have you be a part of that process. The other thing I'd say that really stands out to me from serving on this committee, looking at Wellness Center number 1, and Bill Fleming's here today with Healthy Living. I spoke there recently, and there was a large female contingency that came to me about the lack of restrooms, bathrooms, space to dress, and they were very passionate about that. And so I worked with Bill and I worked with David to come up with a plan, and Bill wanted to do a lot more, but cuts had to be made, and I want to commend Bill for, they volunteered, they're a nonprofit, to provide some of the furnitures and fixtures to make this work. And my point is, we all have to give and take. And this is a wonderful problem to have. I look forward to working with each of you on it and other members of the committees. Thank you.
Mike?
I'd like to speak on the last item on the list briefly, because this did not come up through any of the subcommittees, and we've had a brief discussion, but I just kind of wanted to pass on kind of my thoughts. I think one of the criticisms of MAPS 3 was that we did not provide any funding for them. We're building all these big projects, and we haven't provided any funding to maintain them or to operate them. And I think that's a criticism we've heard, and I think it was something that was recognized in MAPS 4. And in MAPS 4, basically the council adopted that concept and to set aside some reserve funds, some capital reserve funds to do improvements or to do expansions or do some capital maintenance items down the road. We've already, we've heard about some of the senior centers. If they take off like number 1 did and they want to expand, where's that money going to come from to do that? If we have a flood along the river and wipes out some of the trails, how are we going to rebuild them? If we develop roof leaks at the fairground or something, what are we going to do about it? So I think it's just a prudent idea maybe to set aside some of the excess money to use to maintain the existing projects we have in MAPS 3. And I don't have a number for that, and it would be just something I guess we'd have available, and I guess I almost see that as kind of the whatever's left fund. I mean, obviously, we're going to continue to earn interest, we're going to continue to do some other things along the way, and so you maybe the council might pick 2 or 3 of these projects, and there may be $5 million or $10 million or something left over, and over the next few years there's still going to be money coming into that, and that just becomes kind of a reserve fund that we leave out there. And so I would encourage that maybe the council to consider that. I think it was a prudent idea they had in MAPS 4 to take care of some of those things, and I'd recommend they consider that as well.
I think it's an important point to make, though, that it wasn't as though we forgot about it. I mean, we were given capital projects. That's all. The only thing included in MAPS 3 were capital expenditures. So it wasn't as though we forgot about maintaining them. We did what we were asked to do, and that is oversee the implementation of the expenditure of capital projects. But that doesn't diminish what Mike has said, and that is that it's really important for us to do that. Anyone else? Well, I want to close it with this then before we decide what to do. First, the mayor was very interested in knowing what each of you thought about this, and I think that Councilman Stonecipher has been very encouraging to us about listening to what you've said, and Mark, I hope that you will, as our representative on the council, you'll carry these comments forward, so that at least they will certainly be considered by the council. Also, the mayor made clear that when the excess funds are allocated, we're not through with this. He still wants us to oversee the implementation of the allocation of the funds that are made. So we will continue to do our job after they do theirs. And he asked if there was any reason why, if there are questions, if they couldn't refer things back to us to work through our established process, and I told him that we'd be glad to do that as a review, for example, the Union Station or other things that they're thinking about doing where we have the information that might be useful and helpful to them. They might need to refer things back for further consideration. So I see this as kind of a natural evolution as we head down the home stretch in MAPS 3 and we start thinking about how to coordinate the ending of our activities and the beginning of MAPS 4. I don't think this is unusual at all for us to be thinking about how to make an orderly transition and to use the money in the best way for the citizens of Oklahoma City. And even though my reaction wasn't that much different than Mike's when I first thought about it, I, like Mike, have come around to the idea that this is the right thing for us to do and try to move it forward. Any further comment or discussion?
I just have one point. Could we make just a few additions to this list before it goes to council? For instance, the fairground talks about what that $9 million request is for. So does the trails and sidewalks. On senior wellness, I think it would be great to say that $975,000 is needed for expansion to that facility, that $1.8 million is needed for lessons learned based on number one. Number 4, lessons learned plus additional parking, and then on the park for Union Station and possible expansion to the river. So at least at first glance, there's an explanation for all of them, because some do and some don't.
I think that's a great idea.
Councilman says it's a great idea. Dee?
I just have one question. What's the rush on this? Is there any reason this has to be dealt with right away instead of waiting a little while and seeing if there are any other needs?
Well, I can only tell you what I heard in our meeting, and was that as they begin to think about, for example, and I'll use just one example, as they begin to think about the Coliseum at the fairgrounds, they're right in the middle of planning, and they are expecting funds from for several different sources. For example, they're going to have some money from MAPS 4, they're going to have some money from hotel and motel tax, and so there are multiple funding sources, and they don't believe that they can begin to build a budget until they know that those funding sources are available, and therefore they're ready to get started. And I don't believe anybody thought they were rushing us. We've been working on this about the excess fund for several months. So, but that's not to say that we couldn't continue to offer anything else that comes up later, but I think there are some specific projects that they want to start on.
Just to echo your comments as far as the Coliseum is concerned, and the different funding sources and how they all have to work together and on a specific timeline. I've heard Mayor Norick speak to that and say the importance of dealing with this sooner rather than later. So I have heard from Mayor Norick on the subject of the Coliseum and the importance of the timing of those decisions.
Thank you.
I'd like to also add, Mr. Chairman, that the money for the wellness centers, it would stop design work on wellness centers 3 and 4 until we get a solid budget, and then any expansion would also be halted.
And we're in the middle of the design on both of those two things now, and if they didn't get the money, they'd have to design them one way, and if they did. So I don't, obviously this from the outset has been a very deliberate process. I mean, we've been deliberate about virtually everything we've done. And so I don't want to leave the impression that there's a rush. I'm just saying they asked us to get this report to them as soon as we could. Okay?
It sounds to me like what you're saying, there's 1 or 2 items on here they want to consider now.
Yes.
They're probably not going to allocate all the excess money from this list right now. And so items may drop off or items may come back on the list in the future, but there's a couple of the items they want to deal with pretty quickly.
And the wonderful thing about our system, to Mike's point, is that it's never too late. If something comes up that you want to have considered, you can bring it here, and we've got a councilman that's a member of our group that can take that idea forward for us. So I don't think it'll be too late. I don't think necessarily we're rushing it, and I wouldn't want any of you to think that you shouldn't keep thinking about it and bring any ideas forward that you have. Okay?
Clarifying question. So the amounts here is almost double of what we actually have in excess. So really this isn't, I mean, if I'm doing that math right, but so really this is just kind of us saying, here's the full view that we can see today. There's going to have to be an allocation that's roughly, half of that, but at least we can see what the priorities are and what's in our purview right now.
That's exactly right, Nathaniel.
We're not setting any priorities or ranking them or picking and choosing. We're just saying, because that budget process has been in the council's purview in the past, and we're turning it to them. So here's the list of items. Tell us what the priorities are.
Exactly. Anything else? Okay, if we're done, that brings us then to, pardon me?
Yeah, we'll take an action on this. I move it.
Yes, we do. They're asking us to recommend the approval of forwarding this to the council. So, is there a motion? Mike's moved that we approve it, move it to the council. Is there a second? Cecilia seconds it. Is there further discussion?
That's being moved
With the additional descriptions, yeah.
Further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is approved. That brings us to item 11. David, do you have any new business?
No, sir.
Any member of the Citizens Advisory Board have new business? All right, then. That takes us to item 12. We've heard about action items from the subcommittees. Any subcommittee have a additional report they want to add at this time?
This year has started off as a great year for Scissortail Park, and certainly it ended on a great note. It's amazing to see how many people are there on a daily basis, rain, snow, sleet, hail. But I have some accolades to share with everyone.
Oh, great.
Yes. The Urban Land Institute, which has a chapter here in Oklahoma City, had its 6th annual awards for impact to the city on January 31st. And in the category of, let me get to the right category, I apologize, Outstanding Public Initiative, Scissortail Park won that award. So we are very proud and pleased for all the work that everyone has put into this project and the level at which our operator is maintaining that property. And then also in February, we received notice from the Scissortail Foundation that Scissortail Park was selected as the 2020 Mom Approved Best Park by the Oklahoma City Moms blog. And if you've never heard of Oklahoma City Moms blog, it is the definitive blog for everything that is mommy and daddy and children. And the accolades that we received from them are certainly very much approved. And we even have a special little stamp that Scissortail Park can put on all their information on the website, showing what a great facility is, not only for everybody in Oklahoma City and Oklahoma, but visitors that come to the city as well. So congratulations to us all.
Thank you, Kim. Anyone else? All right, then, that brings us to lucky 13. That must be David Todd.
It is. We've talked about most of the projects today. I can just tell you, again, the convention center is going well. Really couldn't be going much better, and it's looking beautiful. You saw what's going on at the river. We talked about senior wellness. And you saw what's going on at the fairgrounds. Streetcar continues some construction. You'll see some new paint going up and some things that you really won't recognize as far as electronics that are being done, but there is work still going on with the streetcar, so everything's going well.
One question, David, about the convention center. I know that we can't do this with exactitude, but we're thinking that the ancillary things going on around the convention center, the Omni Hotel, the parking garage, could you give us a report on how those are going, and are those things going to get done, even though it's not your responsibility, I know, but right. How are they doing?
Right. Well, reports I hear is that they're all on schedule and going well. It's certainly been a tight area down there, but everybody's playing well and working well with each other. And, you know, you can see the garage is up out of the ground. I think they've got about 2 floors on that. The hotel's looking great. So, you know, at the end of the year, it's going to be a whole different atmosphere right in that area.
Great. All right, that brings us to item 14. Any comments by board members? Staff? Carol, anything? I do see that we have a good number of citizens here, and this is the opportunity anyone has to make any comments they'd like to make. Any citizens want to be heard today? Mr. Pettis?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I just wanted to make a comment on what was said this morning by Dr. Woods and also Councilman Stonecipher and the rest of the members. And I'm speaking in regards to Wellness Center number 3. Wellness Center number 3, in its current plan, there's an area for expansions, and the staff has graciously agreed to recommend additional funds, which was $1.8 million that you all voted on today. But to include the expansion of the building itself, we'll need another $1.7 million. And I would like for the committee to kind of move this forward because of 2 things. There's only so much land that's available for the building itself, and if they add this expansion on, it will max out the land for the building on its current design. And since there may be some excess money, the $1.7 million, I asked the architect how much will it cost to complete the expansion, and then the building will be complete. And that's what he said. It would be an additional $1.7 million. And it will take up all of the space that there is for the center. Now, there will be parking lot, but we wouldn't be looking at expanding the building on any potential parking lot. This is land for the building itself. So in the near future, I would hope that the committee look at funding the expansion of Wellness number 3, and then we'll be done with it.
Thank you, Mr. Pettis. We always appreciate you being here. Your comments will be included in the minutes of the meeting, and the councilman is here to make sure they're heard by the city council as well. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Anyone else? No. An old friend.
I'm Russell Pace. I live at 6212 South Shore Drive here in Oklahoma City. A member of the Maps, Trails, and Sidewalks Oversight Committee. It's been a great 10 years in Oklahoma City. It's amazing to see what we've accomplished with the dedicated service of the people that surround us in this horseshoe today. I'm here to ask that we complete the promise that was made to the citizens of Oklahoma City to build 50 miles of trail. Maps 3 use that specific language. We're currently at 29.9. We're about 60%. The trails have always gotten great reviews. If you did the exit poll indicated that that was the highest rated project in Maps 3. We've done a great job. We've completed almost all of it. The trails still lack a substantial amount of the mileage. Understand that the cost of buildability certainly influenced that, but we have an opportunity and an obligation, I think, the citizens of Oklahoma City to finish that project. Understanding now from Chairman McDaniel's statement how the process will continue, that's really all I have to say today. But let's finish those trails. Let's build South Oklahoma City the trail they deserve. Thank you.
Russell, while you're there, I want to offer my personal thanks to you. I've been to a lot of those trails meetings, and you've been one of the most faithful members of that subcommittee, and you've done a great job, and a good part of the success of what has happened is due to you and your colleagues on that subcommittee, and I want to say a public thank you to you for your volunteer service. You've done a great job. Thank you.
Wonderful to hear, and a lot of that goes to the staff and the other members as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Russell. All right, anyone else? Hearing none, Cecilia, you wanted to make a motion to adjourn? And Mike, you wanted to second that?
I'd like to.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn the meeting. All in favor say aye. Aye. We're adjourned.